Hey ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Humbert here, and we're going to do Unit 4, Learning Target 5 Notes, which is the basic factoring using the x. So now we're going to take that x and we're going to apply it along with stuff we've already learned. So let's go ahead and take a look at our steps for doing that. So first and foremost, the first thing you want to do is set up the x. Remember, that's what we talked about on the previous note sheet. So we're going to multiply our a times our c, and that's our product on top. Then that's going to add to b, which is our sum on the bottom. Then you need to solve the x. You need to figure out which numbers multiply to the top and add to the bottom. Then we're going to rewrite our original equation, splitting up the b terms. So we're going to split up the b terms using what we found in the x. So that might not make 100% sense right now, but it will when we go through the first couple of examples. Once you have 4 terms, you can always factor by grouping. So that's what we did at the beginning of this unit. We're going to bring that in and apply it to what we're doing today. So let's go ahead and take a look. So for number 1, let's write out our a, our b, and our c values. So a is equal to 2, b is equal to 7, and c is equal to 3. So now we're going to set up our x. So we're going to take 2 times 3, which is going to give us 6, adding to 7. So what are some things that multiply to 6? Well, since they're both positive, both our factors are going to be positive. So we have 1 and 6, 2 and 3. What adds to 7? 1 and 6. So here's where the new part comes in. You're not just done when you do the x now. Now we actually have to factor it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this equation out. I'm going to keep the 2x squared the exact same. Now, instead of writing 7x, I'm going to write it as 1x plus 6x plus 3. So notice my first and my last terms stayed exactly as they are. 1x plus 6x equals 7x. So I haven't changed the value of the problem. All I've done is using the x to figure out how to split up my b term so that I have 4 terms. The reason why we want to do that is because once I have 4 terms, I can factor by grouping. So between 2x squared and x, I can take out an x. So I'm dividing each term by x, and then I'm left with 2. X squared divided by x is just x, and then 1x divided by x is actually just going to leave me with 1. So think back to that factoring by grouping. Between 6 and 3, you can take out a 3, so you're dividing each of these terms by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and then x, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. So now we have our leftovers. Notice that our leftovers are matching. So we can go ahead and factor our leftovers out. And once we factor those leftovers out, we're going to write what's left after that, which is x plus 3. So notice this is written as 2 binomials being multiplied together. So if you were to take these 2 and do the box method, you don't have to. But if you were to take those 2 and do the box method, you would end up with this answer. Remember, Unit 4 is a lot of undoing of Unit 3. So let's take a look at another example. We don't have too many to do today, so hopefully this starts to make sense. So let's assign our A, our B, and our C. Our A is 3, our B is 16, and our C is 5. So let's set up our x. So we're multiplying to 3 times 5, which is 15, and adding to 16. So we're multiplying to 15 and adding to 16. Because both our numbers are positive, then both of our factors are positive. So we have 1 and 15, 3 and 5. Well, 1 plus 15 is 16, so that's what I'm going to use. Again, you can flip-flop those two, and the factoring by grouping will still work. That's what's so great about this. So it doesn't matter what order you put them into the x. So let's factor this by grouping. So I'm going to keep the first term the same. Then I'm going to split up this term as 1x plus 15x. I use that from the x itself. And now I need to factor this guy by grouping. So group, group. Between 3x squared and 1x, I can take out an x. And then I'm left with 3x plus 1 when you divide each of those terms by x. Then between 15 and 5, you can take out a 5. So we're dividing each of those terms by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3, and then you're left with x, and 5 over 5 is 1. So again, if your leftovers match like they do here, then you factored by grouping correctly. So we have 3x plus 1, that's left over. This is good. And then after that, we're going to write x plus 5. So that right there is your final answer for number 2. Continuing forward, let's take a look at number 3. So for number 3, we want to figure out what our A, our B, and our C is. Our A is equal to 1. Our B is equal to 8. Our C is equal to 7. So now we need to set up our x. So we're going to take 1 and we're going to multiply it by 7. 1 times 7 is 7. So we're multiplying to 7 and adding to 8. So again, both positive product and sum means both positive factors. So now 1 times 7, we're going to have 1 and 7. And that's the only thing that multiplies to 7. Well, thank goodness 1 plus 7 is going to give us our 8. So now we're going to take and we're going to use that to split up this 8x. So I'm going to keep x squared the same. Now instead of writing 8x, I'm going to write 1x plus 7x, and then I'm going to keep that last term the same. So always, always, always your first and your last terms stay the same. So then we're going to make our groups. Between x squared and x, I can divide out an x. So I'm dividing each of these terms by x. X squared over x is just x, and then x over x is 1. 7x and 7, I can divide out a 7, and then I have x plus 1. So if we notice, our leftovers are matching, so we have x plus 1 that we can factor out. And then once I factor those out, I'm going to write what's left over, which is x plus 7. So this right here is our final answer for number 3. Taking a look at number 4. So for number 4, we need to set up our x. So our A is equal to 1, our B is equal to 5, and our C is equal to 6. So just as a reminder, A always comes from the squared term, B comes from the x term, and C comes from the constant. So the top of our x is going to be 1 times 6, which is 6, and then adding to 5. So let's take a look at the factors of 6. Again, these are both positive factors. So 6, we have 1 and 6, 2 and 3. So now I want to figure out which one of those add to 5. And that's going to be 2 and 3. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite out that original quadratic, splitting up that middle term. So I have x squared. Now I'm going to write that as 2x plus 3x. Okay, so 2x plus 3x is the same as 5x, but I've just split it up so that I have 4 terms. And now I can go through and factor by grouping. So I have a group here and a group here. Between x squared and 2x, I can take out an x. So I'm dividing both terms by x. X squared divided by x is just x. And then x over x cancels out, and we're just left with 2 in that one. Between 3 and 6, you can divide out a 3. So I'm dividing each of these terms by 3. Okay. So now I notice x plus 2 and x plus 2, my leftovers are matching, so I can factor those out. And once I factor those out, I'm going to write what's left over, which is x plus 3. Okay, so I have x plus 2 and x plus 3 left over for number 4. Let's take a look at a couple more examples here. So let's take a look at number 5. So we want to go ahead and assign our A, our B, and our C value. So A is equal to 3, B is equal to -1, and C is equal to -2. So now we want to go ahead and we want to multiply. So we have 3 times -2 is -6. So we're multiplying to -6 and adding to -1. So because we have a negative product, we need to have a positive and a negative factor. So to multiply to -6, we have 1, -6, -1, 6, 2, -3, -2, 3. So now we want to figure out which one of those is going to add to -1. Well, that's going to be 2 and -3. So now, once I've done that, I'm ready to factor by grouping. So I keep my first term the same, and then I'm going to split up that negative x as plus 2x minus 3x minus 2. And now I'm ready to factor by grouping. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So here's a group, and here's a group. Well, I can't divide 3 and 2 by anything, but I can take an x out of each term. So I'm going to divide each term by x. So I have a 3. X squared divided by x is just x, and then x over x is canceled, and I'm just left with 2. So here we have a negative we can pull out. I have to take a negative out of each term. So when we divide each term by a negative 1, we get 3x plus 2. So if you notice then, your leftovers are matching. So 3x plus 2 and 3x plus 2, I can factor those guys out. Okay, once I've factored those guys out, I've gotten rid of those, I can write what's left over after that, which is x minus 1. So this right here is your final answer for number 5. Okay, let's take a look now at number 6. So first, let's assign our a, our b, and our c value. So a is equal to 2, b is equal to 9, c is equal to negative 5. So then we're going to go and set up our x. 2 times a negative 5 is a negative 10. Adding 2, 9. So because we have a negative product, we're going to have a positive and a negative factor. So things that multiply to negative 10. 1, negative 10. 1, negative 1, positive 10. 2, negative 5, negative 2, and 5. So to get a positive 9, we need negative 1 and positive 10. So my positive 10 goes there, my negative 1 goes there. Remember, it doesn't matter the order in which you put them in the x or into grouping. If you did the x correctly, it'll always work. So we keep the first term the same, then we're going to split up this 9x as plus 10x minus 1x minus 5. So now we're ready to factor by grouping. Between 2 and 10, you can divide out a 2 and an x, so we're dividing both of those by 2x. So 2 over 2 cancels to 1. X squared divided by x is just x. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and x over x is going to cancel. Here, negative GCF in the middle, so I'm taking out a negative. Between negative 1 and negative 5, I'm going to just take out a negative 1. So when I divide each of those by a negative 1, I'm left with x plus 5. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So we have our leftovers that are matching, x plus 5, x plus 5. So I can go ahead and factor those out. And once I factor those out, I'm going to write what's left over. So I have 2x minus 1. So then I have, again, if these two parentheses are flipped around, that's okay too. Like if you had 2x minus 1 first, that's okay because multiplication is communicable. 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2. So I want you guys to go ahead and complete 7 and 8 on your own, and then have me check them quick before you get your homework sheet to make sure you're doing them right. If you're not doing them right, we'll do them together to make sure you understand before you do your homework sheet. Thanks for listening, guys.